All right, let's dive right into this. We're looking at an ancient political thriller straight from the pages of 1 Samuel 19. And honestly, if you think modern political dramas are intense, well, just wait. The source material we're unpacking today is absolutely bursting with assassination plots, daring midnight escapes, and some of the most intense family drama you will ever read. We're going to break down a gripping sequence of events where a paranoid king tries to eliminate a rising star, and we'll see exactly how the king's own children step in to intervene.
Here's the crucial question framing our explainer today. How do you protect your closest friend when the most powerful man in the country wants him dead? Put yourself in that position for a second. The absolute most powerful man in the nation has just issued a kill order. How do you respond? As we dig into this text, we're going to examine the incredibly different ways two royal siblings try to save the exact same man.
So let's start with Act 1, the Dipper Rats.
The narrative kicks off with a shockingly blunt death sentence. There's no subtlety here at all. King Saul issues a direct command to his son, Jonathan, and to all his servants that they should kill David. The target is painted squarely on his back. But Jonathan has a massive conflict of interest. The text tells us he delighted much in David. So the king's son immediately leaks this high-level intel. He warns David to take heed, to abide in a secret place, and hide himself until the morning. But Jonathan doesn't just panic. He formulates a highly structured political strategy. What's absolutely fascinating here is how Jonathan acts as a masterful diplomat. He goes out to stand beside his father in the field to logically plead David's case. He argues David's innocence, reminding Saul that David put his life in his hands and slew the Philistine. He points out that the Lord brought a great salvation for all Israel, and that Saul himself saw it and rejoiced. Jonathan is basically cornering his father with pure, undeniable logic. Why sin against innocent blood without a cause? And you know what? This daylight, reasoned approach actually works. Saul listens to the voice of Jonathan. He's moved by the logic and swears a solemn oath, declaring, "As the Lord liveth, he shall not be slain." It's a massive diplomatic victory. Jonathan brings David back into Saul's presence, just like in times past. Crisis averted, right? Well, not quite. That brings us to Act 2, the breaking point.
Because this peace treaty is incredibly fragile. A sudden shift in the political landscape just shatters Jonathan's diplomatic victory. War breaks out again, and David finds massive military success, striking the Philistines with a great slaughter. But this success completely triggers Saul's paranoia. An evil spirit from the Lord comes upon Saul as he sits in his house. David is there playing music to soothe him, and suddenly, diplomacy is dead.
In a visceral, shocking moment of violence, Saul grips his javelin and hurls it, attempting to literally pin David to the wall. David slips away just in time, and the javelin smashes into the wall. David is forced to flee into the night. That daylight logic from Jonathan? Yeah, it's no longer going to keep him alive. Which brings us to Act 3, the decoy.
With reason completely out the window, David's wife, Michal, who is also Saul's daughter and Jonathan's sister, steps up with a drastically different plan to save him from Saul's hitmen. She perfectly assesses the imminent threat, telling David plainly, "If thou save not thy life tonight, tomorrow thou shalt be slain." There is absolutely no time for a diplomatic meeting. If David waits for the sun to come up, he's a dead man.
So she goes into full heist mode. She outlines exactly what needs to happen. First, physically lower David down through a window into the dark. Next, to buy him time, she crafts this elaborate decoy. She lays an image, an idol, in his bed, strategically places a pillow of goat's hair to mimic human hair, and covers the whole thing with a cloth to make it look like a sleeping, sick man. It is a brilliant, high-stakes illusion. And the tension completely peaks the next morning. Michal lies directly to the messengers, claiming David is sick, but Saul is unrelenting. He issues this chilling, deadly command: "Bring him up to me in the bed that I may slay him." When the men storm the room, the deception is totally uncovered. Saul confronts his daughter, furious, and Michal, staying incredibly sharp, lies again to protect herself, claiming David threatened her life. Let's pause here for comparing two loyal allies. We have just witnessed two entirely opposite strategies for dealing with a dangerous ruler, executed by two siblings sharing the exact same goal: keeping David alive. Think about it. Jonathan was the idealist. He used diplomacy, appealed to logic, defended David's innocence, and operated out in the open daylight. He actually believed he could reason with power. Michal, on the other hand, was the realist. She used deception, anticipated her father's violence, faked a sickness, and operated in the shadows of the night. Jonathan worked within the rules, Michal broke all of them. Both forms of loyalty were absolute, but they reacted to the shifting reality of Saul's madness in completely opposite ways. This all culminates in Act 4, the bizarre final pursuit. David's flight takes him to the prophet Samuel at Naioth in Ramah, setting the stage for one of the most unusual conclusions you will ever read in an ancient text. Saul relentlessly sends out 3 waves of hit squads, but it's almost comical how badly they fail. First, he sends messengers, but when they see Samuel, the Spirit of God comes upon them and they begin prophesying. Saul sends a second group, they prophesy. He sends a third group, they also prophesy. Finally, a furious Saul travels there himself. But the exact same thing happens to the king. Prophesying here is described as this powerful, involuntary, ecstatic state brought on by the Spirit of God. It completely, utterly overpowers Saul's murderous intent. In fact, it literally and figuratively strips Saul of his royal power. He strips off his clothes and prophesies before Samuel, lying down naked all that day and all that night. His authority is completely neutralized by divine intervention, which actually sparked a famous proverb. Is Saul also among the prophets?
As you think about this wild narrative of escape, I want to leave you with this final thought regarding the true nature of loyalty when everything is on the line. When you are dealing with irrational, toxic power, is it better to reason like Jonathan, using diplomacy and logic while the sun shines? Or is it better to rebel like Michal, using deception and bold action when the darkness falls? It's a profound question about how we confront injustice. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning what you read.